All right. Good morning, everyone. It looks like we have a quorum, so I will call this meeting of the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency to order. Good, happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to Paul, our new member, and to everyone. We'll start off with some. I guess we'll start off with the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions or omissions from the agenda? If not, I'd welcome a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Why don't we do a quick round of introductions, and why don't we start in the room and maybe give the first chair to our newest member there, Paul from the city of Lacey.
Thank you. I'm Paul Barrett. I'm actually from the city of Olympia.
That's what I mean. I'm sorry, Olympia.
A
Yes.
lot of love for Lacey, a lot of love for Tumwater.
Yeah.
I see our colleague from Tumwater on here too. I'm just very happy to be serving in this capacity. I'm a newbie. I'm green. I have a lot to learn. So I look forward to having conversations with all of you about the important work of this committee. I've kind of followed it from time to time as issues have arisen over the last 30 years. But I just look forward to working with you all collaboratively. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And Emily, you want to say hi? We'll finish off board members in the room.
Thank you. Emily Klaus, Thurston County Commissioner, and now Chair of the Finance Committee and Vice Chair of ORCAA. So I'm really excited about that. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, did a great job. Do we have any other board members in the room with you?
Nope.
Okay.
Staff.
We'll go online. I'll just call folks and you can say hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave Tobin, Pacific County Commissioner.
Thank you. Good to see you, Joan.
Joan Cathy, City of Tumwater.
Happy New Year. Hello, Mike.
Mike French, Clallam County Commissioner.
Randy.
Randy Netherland, Mason County Commissioner.
Great. And Georgia.
Georgia Miller, Grays Harbor County Commissioner. Happy New Year, everyone.
All right, good to see everyone. Everything's glowing on the first meeting. So I'm Greg Brotherton, Jefferson County Commissioner, and the chair this year. Why don't we go back into the room and let Jeff manage staff introductions in the room and then online.
Okay, great. So I'm Jeff Johnston, Executive Director of ORCAA. Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. So joining me here in the conference room today, Odell Hadley, Senior Air Monitoring Specialist, Tyson Justice, Financial Services Manager, Tiffany Flores, Record Specialist, ORCAA's Public Records Officer, and taking minutes this morning. Also have Rob Weiland, Inspection Supervisor. You might notice that Mike Schultz, Compliance Manager, is not here. He's on vacation this week. So Rob is covering the inspection part of compliance, and Jennifer DeMay online is the inspection supervisor. It will be covering the inspection part. Also online, we have Dan Nelson, ORCAA's Communications Manager, running Zoom. And listening in, Chris Kraus, IT System Administrator, and Abby Roberts, Engineer. And I think I've got all staff that are part. So I think that's it.
Great. Thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, next up is the chair report, and I have a brief report just kind of laying out the first quarter of our meetings and the cadence of what we'll be seeing. But first, we'll turn it over to Emily for an update on the finance committees from today's meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so we had a pretty robust discussion this morning at the Finance Committee meeting. We talked a little bit about the core grant and the situation going on there. I know we've had some updates from staff in the last several months about what's going on with that. Sounds like we don't have all the answers yet. We haven't found a way to offset the difference in core funding yet, but we are still in a strong position financially. We are gonna probably be moving into maybe some tougher conversations if we don't figure out what's going on with those core grants in the next several weeks to a couple months. As staff prepare for budget conversations. It sounds like we're hoping to have an update on the situation with the core grant this week. So we'll probably be hearing in February a little bit more information on that. We are, let's see, we talked a little bit about what those core grants pay for and the different impacts of the uncertainty and we know we're probably gonna have a reduction that's been confirmed, but we don't know how much. So we talked about some of the operational impacts such as outdoor burning capacity in that area is gonna be lower. We'll have reduced time of inspectors in the field working on outdoor burning issues. And we expect outdoor burn online notifications to extend beyond Thurston County at the start of October when burn season starts. So we've had some conversations about that at the last few finance committee meetings. And we also had our update on the staff proposal regarding asbestos and demolition fees. We had a pretty exciting conversation around that, lots of important feedback, and the proposal there is to increase the fees for work on asbestos and demolition. We don't have anything finalized yet, but we did receive a recommended fee increase that, you know, on paper might look pretty substantial, but after having a conversation about it, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I think that it looks pretty good, and I think we're moving in a positive direction. But the finance committee did have some additional questions for staff, so we'll be bringing that up again in February. I think of important note is that fees for emergency asbestos and demolition projects will be increased to, it sounds like what we're looking at is the potential of increasing those fees to double the project amount. So for example, if an asbestos project is going to cost $1,000, then an emergency fee for something like that would be around $2,000. So we talked a little bit about what that means and the implications there. And we did have some specific questions for staff to look into as far as potential phased approaches and a couple other things that they'll bring back in February. So we'll be having those conversations again in February. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, just offer a couple sort of points. So just a reminder, so the email that Debbie sent out last week that included the board packet with links to all the meetings today also included a link to the agenda for the finance committee that included the briefing memo on the asbestos and demolition fee increases that we're proposing. And we're not so we're, again, because in the context of the reduction in core grants that Emily first mentioned, we are looking at ensuring that our fees to operate our programs, such as asbestos registration, other things, are covering as much of the cost of operating the programs as possible. So that's the context by which we're looking at increasing asbestos and demolition fees. So would invite the full board to look at that briefing memo. Again, as Emily mentioned, no decisions were made, but the idea is that any fee increases that the finance committee approves to move forward would then be part of our draft fiscal year 2027 budget that we'll be talking about in the coming months with the finance committee and then the full board, you know, likely at the March and April board meetings. And actually, this is a good segue, Greg, to you mentioned that you wanted to talk about kind of looking ahead for the next couple of months. But yeah, so just a little context on what Emily had mentioned about the finance committee.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's what I've got for our update.
Comprehensive update. Emily, any questions or comments for Emily? Okay, great. Well, I'll just point out one thing that I was really kind of unaware of on our regular agenda that folks can always take a look at, which is the agenda planner. If you look at the bottom of the agenda where it says next meeting, February 11th, click on that hyperlink that is February 11th, you get into the agenda planner. And in there, you can see that some of the interesting items coming up in the first quarter and second quarter
Hey, Dan,
are...
I'm sorry, Greg. Dan, can you please put that document up on the screen?
Great. So some of the exciting things coming up is a presentation that Jeff is bringing because of he really enjoyed the presentation and learned a lot. I think that really excited me too. For Dr. Meredith McCormick, who is going to be presenting on, oh, now I've lost it here. Oh, yeah, on how air pollutants affect our health. And I guess I'm going to invite our public health staff who do a lot of this parallel work, and I'd encourage you to share that link with your public health staff as well if you think that they would be interested in participating. And then we'll also, you can see there was a little not little, but well responded to cybersecurity breach at ORCAA that we'll get into the details in February. And then because of the cadence of our fiscal year, in March, we'll be getting into the first read of the budget. That's why we're already looking at these fees and such this month. And then April, I just want to put it in your calendars, is our next in-person meeting. We try to meet in person twice a year, and we'll be redoing the board field trip that we had to abandon for the weather issues in December. But hope that folks can make it down to Olympia for the April meeting, where we'll also be dedicating the James P. Werner Air Quality Monitoring Station at Mountain View Elementary. So those are the highlights coming up. The important work of the budget is some of our most important work. So I encourage folks to join us then. And I think that is all I had right now. Did I miss anything there, Jeff?
I don't think so. Thank you, Greg. Those were the things that I was looking at highlighting. In terms of the presentation in February from Dr. McCormick, I'll reach out to her. I've been again working with her on a presentation. I'll get an abstract and a title from her. Try to get that in the next couple of weeks, and I'll forward that that you all can forward in case it's helpful for outreach to some of the public health officials that you reach out to. But again, this was a presentation that I saw last October when I was in DC, and it is just, I thought it was very good. And given that, while ORCAA isn't specifically, I mean, we're not public health experts, but we have a public health mission. And that's really what drives the rationale for the Federal Clean Air Act, the State Clean Air Act. And so I thought that it would be a really good presentation to kind of get that grounding for the reason why we do what we do.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Just reminding the board, as you did, that agenda planner is linked to all of our agendas. So please remember that that's there. And if there's other things you would like to see on upcoming board meeting agendas, please reach out. Let me know.
Yep. You feel free to reach out to me as well. And then, all right, well, let's move on to public comment. I'm not sure if there's any public in the room or online, but now is the time to
We
make
have
your
no
comment.
public online and have not received any comments for the board.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Usually that's good news. All right. Well, let's move on to the consent agenda. A couple items on the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? Or if hearing none, I'd welcome a motion.
A move to approve the consent agenda for January 14th, 2026.
Second.
All right. It moved by Commissioner Tobin and seconded by Commissioner Kraus. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that is unanimous. Okay, now one other thing I wanted to mention in my chair report is we're moving our way through the counties. Obviously, we're moving down in the natural beauty scale to Clallam County this month, but still very beautiful, all of the Olympic Peninsula, really. But we've got the cities to consider as well. So we want to contemplate how we make time to focus on some of our cities, not just the 3 cities that are on our board, but some of our other cities too, and the great impacts. All kidding aside, Commissioner French, Clallam County, you want to tee up the focus on Clallam County?
Sure. So thank you. We actually had ORCAA staff come to one of our Board of Health meetings a couple months ago, and so we did a little bit of a mini update on Clallam County to our Board of Health, and had some good feedback there. So they have a presentation. I had some fun facts. I was impressed by our Pacific County fun facts, and so I tried to do a little bit of work on this. What people may have heard about Clallam County, and we'll get into some of the fun facts in the presentation, like that we have the westernmost point in the United States, of course, in the contiguous United States. But what people might have read in the news is we're the bellwether county. And what people probably have heard is that since 1980 until this last presidential election, we selected the winner countywide that matched the winner nationally. But it actually goes back quite a bit further than that. Since 1920, Clallam County voted for the eventual presidential winner in every election except for 1968, 1976, and then now 2024. So apparently the residents of Clallam County generally have a finger on the pulse of national issues. I don't know. The other fun fact that I wanted to share, of course, you can't talk about Clallam County without talking about Twilight. Forks is, of course, the center of the Twilight world, and Stephanie, they hold a yearly Forever in Twilight festival that attracts, I think they almost double the population of the city of Forks with how many people come to participate in that festival. And I've volunteered at it a couple times, and you see people from literally all around the world who travel to Forks, Washington really regularly every year on the anniversary of Bella's birthday, September 13th, to come and enjoy that. The reason, of course, that Stephanie Meyer chose Forks and Clallam County as the recipient of this great honor was because this was the place in the contiguous United States, the town that had the largest amount of rainfall annually on average. And so, we are all Western Washington residents. We know that we get rain. The average Western Washington rainfall annually is about 66 inches. In Seattle, it's closer to 40 inches. The historic low for Forks, Washington is 70 inches. That's the lowest annual rainfall they've ever recorded. And that was in 1985. The average is 120 to 130 inches, and their high was 162 inches in 1997. So it's real. And I've been out there during one of those pouring rainstorms. So those are my two fun facts. And if you ever have a chance to come out during Twilight Fest, you will have a great time.
What time of year when is Twilight Fest?
It's mid-September. September 13th is Bella's birthday in the books. And so that's when they hold their annual Twilight Fest. I think this last year they had a pretty big anniversary and they actually had Stephanie Meyer out.
All right, Dan, you want to go to the next slide? I think we've now talked about a lot of those things, but map of Clallam County there.
So yeah, it's a good sized county. I had some basic details here, but Mike gave us more important and more interesting details. But we'll note that we are the westernmost point in the continental U.S. Cape Alava, which is a fantastic hike if you want to go out that way. The Cape Alava loop trail is great. Ozette is the westernmost town in the continental U.S. And Clallam County is home to the Olympic National Park headquarters, and Olympic National Park is a World Heritage Site.
While you have that slide up real quick, for the county commissioners in the room, the way that our county population works, the quarter of this map that's to the very east is 2 districts, and the rest of the whole county, 3/4 of that geographic district, is my district, which is really rural and really sparse. And so that's where it's really, that wilderness, the huge chunk of Olympic National Park, and then that coastal region is really sparsely populated.
Perfect. And I will note as an outdoor writer, that's some of the most scenic and most rugged country or terrain in our country. We've got the longest wilderness coastline in that jurisdiction. And it's just a remarkable place to explore if you're an outdoors person. Fishing is fantastic on the Sole Duck, the Bogus Shield. Hiking is insane. Really good climbing in Olympic National Park. So Clallam is a pretty remarkable county. And we have a long history there that I'll let Odell talk about.
So there has been a long history and a lot of monitoring in Clallam County, and so I decided to do something a little different. Instead of my table of historical sites that I've done in the past, there was just too much, and I didn't want to just throw a bunch of tables and words at you. This is also my very first use of an AI. I generated this image with Claude because I could not figure out how to code it myself. I gave it a little bit of time and then thought, I'm gonna use AI. So what you'll see here is all the pollutants up at the top, color coded that we have monitored in Clallam County. That's TSP stands for total suspended particulate. And that was what, back in the 70s and 80s was the particulate of concern, with EPA. And then, we also, the red is SO2. There were a lot of AOP and large industrial sources that they'll talk about later up in Port Angeles. And so we were also monitoring for SO2 around Port Angeles area and the port there.
Odell,
We
what
had
is SO2?
Sulfur dioxide, I'm sorry. And then there was a little bit of time when we monitored ozone at the National Park Visitor Center, and that's that little green bar that you see down there from 1980 to 1988, I think, somewhere in there. The yellow, you'll see where the blue moves to the yellow, that is PM10, which is particulate matter that is 10 microns or smaller. And then, so we moved from total suspended particulate to a size select of PM10. And then in 2000, the PM10 became PM 2.5, which is the purple. And that is the really small particles in the air, which are 2.5 microns or micrometers or a millionth of a meter inside in diameter. And so as more and more studies came out of, it was the smallest particles that were creating the largest health concern and staying in the air the longest. And so that's where we are at now. So that shows you, we also did some monitoring in just a lot of different communities throughout Clallam, including Forks and Swim, mostly Port Angeles. So yeah, just a lot of monitoring happening in Clallam County. Next slide. We still have quite a few monitors in Clallam County, more than our average county. So starting on the left-hand side, you'll see a red square. That was where Cheekapeake Encore site used to be, along with the improved site that's operated by the ORCAA tribe. And most of you know, some of you who are new don't, that that site was moved this year due to power loss to Bahocas Peak. So that's the green square. And then the ORCAA tribe also operate a PM 2.5 monitor in Mia Bay. And so you'll see that square there. And then you'll also see a red and a green square down in Port Angeles. That is, the red is where we used to have a PM 2.5 monitor at Stevens Middle School. And then that was moved to the fire station on 5th Street. And you'll see a circle there in Forks. That green circle is the current SenseWA that we installed there. And we are planning at some point, depending on our core funding and when we figure that out, to install the next SenseWA in Swim. And then you'll see a lot of purple stars, and that just marks where all of the public have installed purple air monitors that are, the data are publicly available. So a lot of those are going up in Clallam County too, that we use. Next slide. And then here is the past 25 years of air quality in Port Angeles and Clallam County. You've seen this slide before. You'll notice that the ends are yellows and oranges and reds. That's when we experience the worst air quality, the wood stove season, and some of the fall and spring burning. Summer is typically our cleanest time, unless we have wildfires, and you'll see those pop up in 2018, 2017, and 2020, where we had some periods of very bad air due to wildfire smoke into the region. Even getting a few days of very unhealthy purple, which is over 150 micrograms per meter cubed there in 2020. So that was a bad summer for us there. Okay, next slide. And then this is a new slide I've been adding since Grays Harbor, where one of the commissioners asked how their air quality compared to the rest of the region, and then maybe some of the bigger cities. So this will show you the black solid line is the Port Angeles monitor. The design value is the 98th highest 24-hour PM 2.5 averaged over 3 years, and that's how I use that. It's complicated, but that's how EPA determines compliance with the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. So what you'll see in 2020 and 2018 are some real high spikes, and that is due to the wildfire smoke that we saw. And because it's a 3-year average, it takes 3 years for that average to drop off. And so for 2023 and 2024, you can see we're down below 20 for our design value, which is well below the national standard at 35. So doing pretty well unless we have that wildfire smoke come in. And then those dotted lines, the red you see up there is somehow that got
Yeah, the slide is a little
the
mangled.
slide is got a little mangled, but the red dash line up there is Spokane, even though it shows that it's a red solid on the legend, so I apologize for that. And then the green dash line is Tacoma, and the blue dash line is Seattle. So you can see how that compares with our largest cities, and actually with that wildfire smoke, Port Angeles was very similar to Seattle in that area. So next slide. I think that is all I have. Oh, no, we've also done a lot of studies in Clallam County. So some of you will remember our saturation study we conducted there in 2013 and 2014. That was started because there was some concerns in the public that our monitor was not representing the air quality across the county well. So we have a report available. You can access that through our website, but we looked at air quality across the county and compared it. And after that study, we did end up moving the monitor to the fire station, and we thought that was just a better location. And then we also, around the same time, did an ultrafine study with University of Washington Atmospheric Science Group. And those reports and results are also available on our website, and we had one paper published about the air quality in Port Angeles, and that is that last link that you'll see down there.
Can you remind what ultrafine is?
Ultrafine, so I've told you about PM10, I've told you about PM 2.5. Ultrafines are particulate matter that are 0.1 millionth of a meter or 100 nanometers. So they're really, really tiny. You can't see them, but there is concern that high numbers of those have an impact on health. Those studies are harder to parse out just because of the transient nature of ultrafines. They don't stick around very long, but there was concern, and so we wanted to look at that, and we did. So the results are in that study there that Dan's got the cursor over, and then right below that is one of the papers that was published from that study. And I think that's all I have. And then I think it's on to...
Yeah, so as Odell noted, the worst air days in Clallam, like all of our counties, tend to be in the winter months. That's due to indoor burning, wood stove use. The absolute worst days are the wildfire events, and then we have outdoor burning as a concern for smoke as well. I'm going to talk about the first two, and then we'll turn it over to Rob. Clallam County, being our second largest county, became our second county to get the wood stove replacement program as a trial in 2012. Ecology wouldn't fund it to pay for the program in Clallam at that time. So our board of directors said, let's set aside $10,000 and see if there's interest. There was limited interest there just because it was a brand new program and getting it going. I think we did end up using most of that $10,000, and it was a pretty limited, I want to say 500 for a wood stove to pellet stove, and maybe 750 to do a furnace. So it wasn't a really strong incentive at that time compared to what other counties were doing. But it was enough to show some interest, and now Ecology has granted, I think in 2016 budget year, they allowed us to expand to the cities of Clallam County, and then the entire eastern side initially to have both the recycle program and then a replacement program. Currently, we offer it state or countywide as one of all our 5 counties that have countywide replacement offerings. and we get a lot of participation, mostly in the recycle award, the $500 just to get rid of an old wood stove like the one you see here, but also some really strong interest in changing to ductless heat pumps because people are seeing the hotter summers and realizing they can get a device that both heats in the winter but cools in the summer. So heat pumps continue to be popular, and Clallam County is taking advantage of that. Um, Outdoor burning. I will note the wildfire smoke. I don't have a slide on it, but the wildfire smoke has been uh, particularly noticeable in Clallam County compared to some of our other counties. We do see some transport down the strait, even from smoke from Alaska or Canada swings out over the Pacific and then blows in through the strait. And so the cities of Clallam can get that smoke first and get it in higher doses than areas farther into the Puget Sound region. And then moving on to outdoor burning, I'm going to leave it to Rob.
Thanks, Dan. Good morning, everyone. Rob, Inspection Supervisor, filling for Mike Schultz. Outdoor burning, similar to other counties that we see, we have the residential and we have the land clearing. The residential, it's not a permit program like you would see down in Thurston County. It's just, kind of what the WAC says, 4x4, natural vegetation only, don't burn trash, garbage, don't burn during hours of limited visibility. It's worked out pretty good up there. And for the 24-25 burn season, we have issued 63 land clearing burn permits. Next slide. This will go into the asbestos demolition program. This is just a raw number here for the amount of notifications that we have received for the, I think these are calendar year 25, 44 asbestos notifications, and then the 47 demolition notifications. Next slide.
That would
And then
be.
I'm sure you want to pass it off to Jen to
Yeah.
hit this one up.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Rob. Jennifer DeMam, the engineering supervisor. So I'll talk a little bit today about the businesses that we regulate in Clallam County. So Clallam County is home to 116 registered sources of air pollution. Besides gas stations, which are the common category in all of our counties, the most common source types in Clallam County are auto body shops, furniture and cabinet shops, and sand and gravel operations. Clallam County is also home to 2 of our AOP sources. Air operating permit sources or AOP sources are those that are large enough to have potential emissions over 100 tons per year of criteria pollutants, or 10 tons per year of a single hazardous air pollutant, or more than 25 tons per year of combined HAPs, hazardous air pollutants. So the 2 AOP sources in Clallam County are McKinley Paper, which is currently shut down, and Interfor Lumber Mill. So the registration and AOP programs involve inspecting these sources regularly, typically either annually or every 2 years for our smaller sources. In 2025, we conducted 55 inspections in Clallam County. ORCAA also compiles an annual emission inventory for our AOP sources as well as the larger registered sources. In our most recent inventory year, which is 2024, we collected data from 10 sources in Clallam County. Also, new or modified sources of air pollution must get a permit from ORCAA prior to constructing or modifying those sources. So in 2025, ORCAA received or finalized 5 permits in Clallam County. This notably, this includes a new advanced cross-laminated timber manufacturing process, which is at Composites Recycling Technology Center in Port Angeles, and new human and animal crematories at Mount Angeles Crematory. And then next slide. For our site visit, we took Mike French and some other county and city officials on an inspection of Port Angeles Hardwoods. Port Angeles Hardwoods is a lumber mill that specializes in hardwoods like alder, maple, and cottonwood. They are the only hardwood mill in ORCAA's jurisdiction. All the other ones are softwood lumber mills. This facility was originally approved for construction by ORCAA in 2005. And their facility includes emission units like a wood-fired boiler that produces steam for the dry kilns and other typical lumber equipment like debarkers and sawmills and planer mills. In addition, they are special in that they've been permitted with ORCAA for at least the last 6 years to dry softwood species in their kilns as well, like hemlock and Douglas fir. And this is for a contract they have with a neighbor, Interfor Lumber Mill, to dry some of their lumber for them. So I don't know if Mike French has anything to add about the inspection, but
Sure. I've had tours of PA Hardwood before. This one was very unique because we were really focused on, all the systems that they have that prevent air pollution. So in the red hats you see there, myself, you also see our county administrator, Todd Milkey, and a member of the Port Angeles City Council. So I was trying to spread the word on, get more people educated and involved in this process. That was really positive. And one thing that impressed me was the ORCAA inspectors and engineers had the staff at PA Hardwood explain the systems to us rather than having the engineers. So it was good to see that the staff at PA Hardwood had a really sophisticated understanding of the systems that were in place to prevent air pollution. And they were able to explain it in layman's terms to us and show us how the systems worked. And we went and I had a really great time, and I thought it was really informational.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that concludes our tour of Clallam County, unless there are any sort of last comments or questions. Again, so next up is Thurston County. We've been talking to Emily, and I think we've got an inspection in South Thurston County scheduled in first week in February, I think.
Yep.
And then we're planning on, so I think at the March meeting is when we will give that presentation. And then I will be reaching out, Joan, to you and to Paul and to Nick from Lacey, because we need to kind of figure out what do we want to do in terms of a focus on Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. What is that going to look like? So I don't know, probably maybe February, we could look at having a conversation. I'll reach out about getting something scheduled and we can talk about that, because that'll be then the last of the groupings of municipalities in ORCAA's jurisdiction. Again, we started, I think, with Jefferson County in early 2025. And so again, the idea behind these was just to give us a chance to highlight what's going on in a particular jurisdiction, get a board member out on an inspection, kind of talk about the history of monitoring and other things. I hope it's been entertaining. I hope it's been helpful and useful in terms of getting a deeper dive into ORCAA's work. I would just ask, think about what do we want to do next? Greg mentioned, well, maybe we should look at some of the other cities that we haven't been highlighting, or are there other issues that maybe we didn't have time to get to during our first tour? So just be thinking about that, how we want to kind of continue this regional focus effort going forward, or if we do. So
the last thing I'll highlight too is in Clallam County, we're hoping to have a new source come online in 2026. And I know they've, I think, already been in contact with ORCAA. It's a wood products mill hoping to operate out of the Forks Industrial Park. And so that's another thing for all the other jurisdictions to think about is what's the future look like, industrially in our regions, and are they engaged already? If they're not, they should be with ORCAA and making sure that they're following those rules so that we don't have fines.
yes, that's a really important point, Mike. Thanks.
I like to,
That's great. Go ahead, John.
I'd like to just make a comment about how this has been helpful to me beyond ORCAA, what's going on ORCAA-wise in the towns is, I'm not acquainted with a lot of those counties. So each one, when they named the cities that were in those counties, it gave me a better understanding of the region. I mean, someone just says the county name and then starts talking about it. I don't know if it's on the coast or inland, or I do a lot, but not all the time. Having not been from here and experienced some of the intricacies.
Now, like everyone else, you'll think about Twilight when you think about Clallam County.
Oh yeah. I did know that fine feature, and then I realized that we're doing a lot more than I think in some of these cities and some of these places. It really has highlighted the breadth and the depth of ORCAA for me. So I just want to put a plug in for I think it's good, and maybe if we find another reason to go tramping around again, maybe city by city or something. Yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah, come down to the brewery in Tumwater.
Yeah, come down, stop in. Yeah.
Dan?
I just wanted to note again, I know we've mentioned in the past, but just to reiterate, we do offer a standing invitation to everybody. You don't need to wait until your county's featured to come out on an inspection. If you want to see what work ORCAA does, if you want to see some of the facilities we register and regulate, let our staff know, and we'll get you out on a tour and an inspection. That's a standing invite to all board members.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. That's an important point.
That's great. I want to just highlight, one comment that Mike made that I experienced too in the Jefferson County tour is just kind of, it adds a lot of context to go to these emitters that we often take tours of or know through a different lens in our, whether it be regulatory or economic development, but it's really educational to go with the ORCAA staff as they're on their regulatory visits or permitting visits, and I learned a lot too, and you get a different angle on it. So I think this is really instructive for those members that are already familiar with their own county or city. So I think this has been a great program, and I think continuing to understand each other and ORCAA's work within our jurisdictions is going to pay a lot of dividends. So thank you guys for continuing this program, and look forward to learning from the cities after Thurston County. Any other questions or comments before we move on?
I have another question. I was wondering if sometime, during the year, fairly early on here, if there's a certain troop from ORCAA that comes to a city council meeting, and because Tumwater's had some turnover. We have a new mayor, we have a new city administrator, we have two new council members, and so some of them, if I give my report at the meeting once a month, I discover that some of the folks don't know exactly what I'm talking about. And so
maybe I can interject before. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish.
No, I'm just looking for an opportunity. If there's some folks, I know it takes up 30 minutes or so of your evening. Well, more than that, getting there and so forth. But
I just wanted to say, and then I'll pass it over to Jeff, that I think this goes really hand in glove with these focuses, because I know in Jefferson County the crew came out to our Board of Health meeting. You heard from Mike that they went to the Board of Health meeting before, but this is a great way to really understand what ORCAA does, and have something to talk about specifically when we have staff come to our city or county legislative meetings. But Jeff, do you want to add something?
Yeah, Joan, so thank you for bringing that up. And yes, I'm more than happy. So I'll follow up with you after the meeting and maybe talk about scheduling a time. When would it be convenient for me and maybe some of the other ORCAA staff to attend a city council meeting, give kind of a background on ORCAA. Some folks would be familiar with us, but others, as you mentioned, there's been a lot of turnover on city staff as well as on the city council. And that certainly that invitation or that offer extends to all of our jurisdictions, whether it's attending county commissioner meetings, Board of Health meetings, other things where we can help get the word out. Because again, ORCAA, we're a very small agency with a very large jurisdiction. So the partnerships, working with cities and counties is really important to the work we do.
Okay. I'll also ask ahead of time if we want to talk maybe the first part of next week, I will find out, what are some of the open months or whatever. I don't know if we have a new way we do scheduling with a new, administrative crew, but I know that our council really responds well to having people come and talk to us when,
Sure.
not afraid to ask.
Okay.
So
Yep, happy to do it. That's an
Thank
important
you.
part of
Yeah.
our work.
that's good. Thank you.
Great. Okay, any other questions or comments on the Clallam County focus before we move on to the direct reports?
Actually, we've got some new business first, Greg.
Actually.
I'm sorry. Gotta get back to the agenda. Right. Oh, yes. No, this is important. This is kind of very philosophical. Well, do you want to tee this off, Jeff?
Yes, please. Okay, so as the board knows, ORCAA has a board-approved policies and procedures manual. This is about a 100-page document that articulates agency policies on a wide variety of important workplace topics. It essentially governs how we operate as an agency in terms of the policies. We typically bring recommended updates to the board once or twice a year. The last update we brought was back in June when the updates covered a transition of many staff that were moving from overtime eligible to overtime exempt at the start of this current fiscal year. And there were also a variety of housekeeping edits. So because of the wide variety of topics covered, keeping this document up to date is an ongoing effort. We've talked about ways of streamlining the process for keeping the document up to date. And we, for a while, had briefly entertained having some internal conversations about, well, maybe there's things that are more internal versus things that are more external. And so maybe there's things that the board would approve versus internal. And we kind of brought that up very briefly at the meeting in December. And Randy expressed some concerns about that approach. It's like, no, look, the board is the body that is charged with overseeing this agency. And so he had some questions and concerns about pulling things out of board approval. So that led us to thinking more about it and some sort of amplified some concerns that we had internally. So we're not going to do that. We want to keep a policy manual in front of the board. And so Tyson is going to kind of talk you through some slides that he put together that kind of outlines what were kind of the evolution of this document that again, very important to the agency and the operation of the organization. So with that, hand it off to Tyson and Dan, if you could bring up those slides.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. The really exciting topic of policies, but super important, very important for any agency. So this is a brief presentation on our intentions of updating the agency policies and procedures. Next slide, Dan. So the overall objective of this update that we're proposing is to review all existing agency policies for clarity, consistency, and subject matter. Some of the operational details of this project are we anticipate a year or more in completing all of the policy revisions. And I think this is speaks to what Jeff was just talking about. Any sort of finalized changes approved by an internal review committee, we will present to the board for consideration. Changes will be presented as a group of changes or more selective, whichever is more appropriate considering the updates involved. And then also, we do have an internal review committee set up currently. The review committee consists of 5 staff members, including myself and Jeff. Details around policy update workflow have not been finalized, but it will be an iterative process. So, a lot of updates, review, that type of thing. The 2 goals of this update really consist of 2 things. Reduce policy ambiguity and increase consistent application of agency policies. Next slide, Dan. So what are the outcomes we wish to accomplish with this update? I've identified 3 main outcomes. 1, create concise policy language. This means eliminating extraneous language from policy and implementing simple design elements into policy documents for easier readability. Also, replacing vague policy with more precise policy language. 2, move procedural language out of the policies and into procedural manuals. This will allow the agency to adopt new processes more efficiently without over encumbering the board with review and approving those internal processes. And then lastly, the outcome is to create a comprehensive policy document. This will allow policies to share similar formatting, tone, and increase accessibility for staff. Next slide, Dan. So here's an example of a current policy with revisions. These revisions have not been approved by our internal review committee, but only serve as examples of possible revisions. I want to note that this policy was selected at random and it does not include the whole policy. In this example, we'll only be looking at the first 2 paragraphs of the policy. Also, if any board members would like a copy of our current policies, we're more than happy to provide the total document to you. So looking at the first sentence of this example, you will notice I've struck the prepositional phrase in situations where paid sick leave is not available. This is to increase clarity of what this policy is addressing. It's addressing unpaid medical leave, not paid sick leave. I would also replace "we" with "executive director" for further clarity on who is doing what. Moving to the second section of the paragraph, which I've highlighted in yellow, you'll see I've added the notation "procedure" in brackets. This section is not talking about unpaid medical leave, but sick leave and its interplay with unpaid medical leave. Sick leave is addressed in our sick leave section and should not be restated in the medical leave section. Instances where policy is restated elsewhere needs to be carefully reviewed for necessity and potential policy conflicts. In addition, this section discusses more procedural steps in using sick leave rather than addressing a medical leave of absence. The last section highlighted in green is me noting a true policy embedded in this paragraph. Because the way this policy was written, this simple but critical one-sentence policy could be overlooked. I would propose reformatting this policy in order to bring greater attention to the specific rule within this policy. Next slide, Dan. Continuing to the second paragraph, we'll see the first sentence has been revised for conciseness. The portion I have struck from the first sentence is reference to FMLA, extension of medical leave. This part could use more exact language specifying the length of extension and qualifiers for extending medical leave under FMLA. Moving to the next revision, the portion highlighted in blue references reasonable accommodation. So I did take a look at our PMP manual and we do have a section for reasonable accommodation. So in this revision, I would include a reference to the policy section where reasonable accommodation is located in the PMP manual. So as to not have, again, having conflicting policy restated elsewhere in the PMP manual. The last portion of this paragraph includes a sentence about indefinite leave. I would want to research any laws permitting indefinite leave. My understanding is regulation generally sets time limits and qualifications for medical leave. If there's no law permitting indefinite leave, I would strike this policy since time limits have already been stated. If there is a law permitting indefinite leave, then the policy should state the qualifications which are required per that law. Next slide, Dan. So again, overall, our goal for this project is really just to create clear, concise policy for both staff and management. We hope to revise current policy with clear and direct language, which staff can easily interpret and management can implement on a consistent basis. When updating the policies, we're really being guided by 7 principles that you can see up there. Keep it simple, keep it general, make it relevant, check for accuracy and compliance, ensure the policy can be enforced, clearly state who does what, and I think most importantly, less is more. And that's it. So any questions or discussion of our proposed project around revising our policies and updating them?
finance director and an editor. That's great. Any questions for Tyson? Comments? Good thumbs up from Randy. I concur. I think I really like the general direction, the specific examples. You know, I guess the one question I had in the examples that you listed was when you talked about any 12 months and striking that, so and moved it to a 12-month period. Sometimes that could be, people could say, okay, it's started in the middle of the year. Does the clock reset at the beginning of the next year or the beginning of the next fiscal year or something? So does that word any actually provide clarity in that instance? But, that's a specific question, but really the idea of separating out procedures out of the policy handbook, making sure the policy handbook stays in front of the board, I 100% agree with. And we don't have to get into that any question. It's just kind of for your consideration. I know we're just talking about an approach here, but any other comments or questions for Tyson or Jeff? Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, actually, your question, which you just asked, I'd actually like to hear the answer for it.
So again, policy writing is very difficult because you're dealing with a lot of different situations and in different interpretations of the language. And I think what's important is clearly stating what the rules are and having the language represent the intent of your policy without muddling it up with procedures or vague statements. Again, I think that's the importance of having a procedure manual to back up your policy. So any sort of questions that come about with language of questions in that regard can be addressed in the procedure manual. And that's also why we have an internal review committee, is because then we'll talk about those things and then we'll discuss alternative language that can better describe what we're trying to, the true intent of what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Tyson. Randy?
Yeah, so the question is, though, is that a 12-month rolling period or during a year cycle? For like 2026 versus 2026 and 27, a 12-month window or?
Right. It would be a rolling 12 months. Because you don't want, let's say someone takes it in December, you don't want it to reset in January. So it's a rolling 12 months.
Yeah, it would help if you just clarified that in that document, because I hadn't thought of that question, but when he asked it, it definitely made sense and it wasn't covered. If you'll add that, that'd be a benefit, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, certainly when we bring this edit to the board, those are the things that we can talk about. And so in preparation for that, we'll clarify that it's a rolling 12 months.
Yeah, and those are the types of conversations I hope to have with our internal review committee, talking about those things and nailing out the details.
And so there's a few updates that Tyson and I have been talking about that so probably in February, we'll be bringing a couple things to the board. Tyson's recent extended jury duty brought up some shortcomings in the existing P&P manual that we've made some updates to, and there's one or two other things. So again, you can look to see, so I think you'll be seeing things more frequently than you have in the past. Some of which might take more discussion, other things will hopefully be pretty straightforward and not a lot of discussion, but we'll work through those issues as they come up, as we bring them to you.
And I had one other question for you, Jeff, I guess. You said that if any board member was interested in reviewing the policies in total, that we'd be happy to send them. And is there a reason we don't just have those policies on the website for both, for transparency, and for anyone to look at them whenever they wanted to?
No, I don't think so. I think we might have talked about that in the past, but decided, well, it's more kind of an internal document, but frankly, again, as a public agency, our agency policies and procedures are a public record, so I don't see why. So I can work with Dan, we can figure out where we would want to get that posted on the website and certainly make that available.
Thank you, Randy.
Policy, having it on the website is a good idea. The policy potential changes, keeping it in-house until it's actually official, then putting that on.
Do you want to talk about this, the idea of having kind of a standing agenda item for the policy?
Sure. I mean, so it's one of the things that Tyson and Debbie and I have talked about is that there would be just kind of a standing agenda item. So, so again, I think you will, and we've also talked about, well, maybe some things that are where there maybe isn't going to be a lot of discussion, that could be part of the consent agenda. And then again, if a board member thought, well, this should be pulled out, then we could certainly do that. But again, if something like, for instance, if we're updating our something that has to do with the change in the RCW, that we don't really have there's not a lot of flexibility on, we just need to update a policy because of an RCW change or a CFR change. Yeah, or some grammar or an error. That's the kind of thing that could be part of the consent agenda. But again, those are just things that we've talked about in terms of getting this issue in front of the board regularly with the level of review that you all want to have on these things.
Sounds great. Randy's got one more. Go ahead.
Please don't put it on a consent agenda. If you're going to make changes to the policy, please add it into regular business. Just hold it up until you have enough that makes it worth the conversation. You throw that into consent agenda where somebody doesn't see it, doesn't read it, then why would we do that? It takes 2 minutes to bring it forward. This is the first one. Mostly I would be supportive of everything you guys just put forward. Greg asked a great question, and that's why we do these things, though, to look at it a little bit further. But please don't put it in the consent agenda. If you want to add it to the agenda, add it to the agenda, and we'll be done in a few minutes. Please.
Okay.
Sounds like a fine practice to start. Okay. Any other comments or questions as we got an assent to that, putting it into regular agenda item instead of consent from Georgia. Okay. Well, let's use that as our practice as we start this new regular item. And I appreciate the review. I mean, these policies and procedures, they really matter for the day-to-day operations, and continuing to stay vigilant on them is, I really appreciate staff working on it and the board's interest in, giving that oversight. That's why we're here. Okay. Anything else on this item before we go to the director reports? Okay. Well, we'll move on and turn it over to Jeff for the director's report first.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Greg. Looking around the room, I realized when we did introductions, I forgot to introduce or give Jakub opportunity to introduce himself. I don't think we heard from you, did we? I don't think we did. So sitting in for Jeff Myers today.
Good morning. I'm Jakub Kocztosz. I'm an associate at Law Lyman. I'm here in my distinguished employer's stead today.
Okay, great. Well, again, I apologize for the omission earlier, Jakub, but thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Just real quick, I wanted to say, Chair, and to the board, I do have to step out for another event here in a couple minutes, but I'll just join on my phone and I'll be able to stay till the end of the meeting online. So
okay, great. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of my updates, executive director updates. First, I apologize for the oversight of not getting the calendar invites out for today's meeting. I was meeting with Greg last week and he mentioned that didn't have that on his calendar, so got those sent out. We intentionally have not sent out the calendar invites for the rest of the year. As Dan will talk about a little bit during his report, we're getting ready to make a transition to a different type of Zoom meetings, so that will involve a different Zoom link. So we're making that change. Again, Dan will talk a little bit about that, but when Debbie's back next week, I think soon after, so probably next week sometime, you will see the calendar invites for the rest of the year come out. Again, our meetings are always the second Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. So again, we'll get those out. But again, I apologize for not having today's calendar or today's invite on your calendars. in terms of updates, wanted to let you know that on December 18th, ORCAA fell victim to a cyber scam. As soon as staff recognized what was going on, the compromised laptop was removed from network and all passwords were changed. We alerted Endurus, our insurance provider, about the breach, and Endurus activated our cybersecurity policy and put us in touch with a cybersecurity forensic firm and a law firm specializing in IT issues. The investigation was completed last week. We had our findings call, and I'm very happy to report that no agency information was lost or otherwise compromised. We're still waiting on that final report, and we're working with Endurus on our cyber claim. I will have more information to share at the February meeting. So again, we'll be talking about this in more detail in February, but I did want to just alert you to this issue that we've had. And again, that there was no information, no information compromised, didn't trigger any notification requirements on ORCAA's part. Any questions about that before I move on? Not seeing any. Just an update on strategic planning. Updating the agency's 2018 strategic plan has been on my list almost since I arrived at ORCAA almost 4 years ago. But a wide variety of operational issues just keep coming up and in my mind seem to be a higher priority. At the meeting Greg and I had last week, we talked about the possibility of forming a board strategic planning subcommittee at today's meeting. But as I thought more about it, given other things that are on our plate that I believe are higher priority, I did ask Greg to hold off on forming that subcommittee. I do want to have more conversation with the board, I think in February, about strategic planning for the agency, and I'll present kind of the things in my mind that are higher priority than updating our strategic plan. I will also bring I'll remind you about what our 2018 strategic plan says. And again, the work of local air agencies like ORCAA is pretty well, I mean, our lane is pretty well defined by the RCWs, by the Federal Clean Air Act, the State Clean Air Act. And so, but anyway, I just wanted to give you a heads up. In February, we'll talk more about the agency strategic plan. That is one of my performance measures for the 2-year contract that I'm now in with you. So I do want to get your direction on that to see if that's something that you would prioritize, but I want to be able to bring the things that in my mind are higher priority than necessarily updating the strategic plan. So look for more conversations to come on that. The next thing I was going to mention is just the legislative conversations that I'm having with regards to funding issues. So we've talked a little bit about in the past. So ORCAA, we typically get what we call core grant. It's a grant agreement with the Department of Ecology. There's a state component to that, which is funded by MOTCA operating funds. And then there's a federal component that is money passed through from the EPA as part of the Clean Air Act funding. So here we are more than 6 months into our fiscal year, and we still don't have a grant agreement in place. I gave the Finance Committee a bit of an update on that this morning. I had a meeting with EPA last week and Ecology last week. I think maybe in the next week we'll have that grant agreement in place, but it does involve a reduction particularly in state grant. The state has reduced our funding by 65% this current biennium. And so I believe that, I'm starting to have conversations with legislators. I believe it's really important that we build up a better understanding among our legislators about the important work that local clean air agencies do. RCW 70A15, so the Clean Air Act, then part 1590 states in part, the legislature acknowledges the need for the state to provide reasonable funding to local authorities to carry out the requirements of this chapter. So again, I'm starting to reach out to legislators about reminding them about this commitment that the legislature has made to local clean air agencies like ORCAA. And again, with the reductions in MOTCA core funding, Ecology cut our grant. But I think we need to be talking to legislators. And again, as I'm sure you all know, the short session, the 60-day session just started this week. There's going to the focus is going to be almost exclusively on funding and closing the $2.3 billion shortfall that the state budget has. So there's probably not a lot of oxygen in the room for conversations in the next during session, but I really want to, I mean, if there are conversations to have, let's have them, but also thinking ahead to the 2027 legislative session, the long session, and just making sure that there's more appreciation for the work we do. So if you have, I'm sure many of you have relationships with legislators and can help convey these messages. And so I'd like to work with you to build an appreciation for the work we do. Great. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Paul, and then I have a question after Paul.
Yeah, as a newcomer, I just want to understand the 65% reduction funding. Was that including the MODCA reduction, or was that separate, or is that a line item? Can you just explain that?
Explain a little bit, sure. So ecology funds a lot of the environmental work, or the state funds a lot of the environmental work that it's done through MODCA, Model Toxics Control Account, and ecology. And so the legislature and ecology has chosen to fund local air agencies through MODCA. And because because the MODCA revenue projections are down significantly, ecology just made the decision that local air agencies are going to take a 65% cut. So that was a decision that ecology made based upon partly because of a lot of the MODCA money got swept away from ecology and diverted to transportation and other things. So, and other programs got cut as well, but locals got cut by 65%.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my question kind of in line with that, I just, it seems like the theme for this legislative session is sweeping, and I hear the Climate Commitment Act is also, they're talking about sweeping funds out of that, and I'm just wondering if that's, a silver lining, an opportunity to kind of look for those funds to buffer the funds, getting back to ecology to get those funds back in, and I'm curious if that's been talked about or your thoughts about that idea.
I've thought, I mean, it seems to me that as MODCA revenues decrease, because that is funded through the state's hazardous substance tax, and the largest source of revenue there is petroleum, and petroleum use is decreasing. So MODCA is on a long-term decrease. So it seems to me that Climate Commitment Act funds and the clear nexus that agencies like ORCAA have with climate change could be a source, but when I bring this up with partner agencies and others, they point out that, well, because of the Climate Commitment Act is funded through the Cap and Invest program, and revenues there are also supposed to be decreasing and essentially be gone by 2029, 2030 is what I hear. And so I think that could be maybe a bridge, but I don't see that as a long-term. It's probably not a long-term solution, but again, I would like to be having those conversations with legislators to be talking about the importance of the work we do, and then wherever they find funding, whether it's MODCA, whether it's the Climate Commitment Act, whether it's general fund, other things. Again, the state in the Clean Air Act has committed to funding the work that we do, and frankly, I think that locals, like, ORCAA, we do a very good job of leveraging a very small amount. I mean, again, the amount that we're talking about in our core grant it's about 10% of our total revenue. And so through our fee programs, other things, we do a good job of turning that relatively small investment into a lot of services and a lot of benefits to the public.
Great. I guess one other thing, just before I turn it back over, as strategies materialize, sharing a one-pager with the different members of ORCAA, I'm sure that most are like Jefferson County, where we're developing our legislative agenda really quickly, and if there's a bill that we can support or a letter that as well as coming from ORCAA would be beneficial from coming from members to our legislative contingent, be happy to support that.
Great. I know in the past I have shared after the last meeting, I shared an email that we had sent to Director Six Killer at Ecology about the impacts of the core funding cuts. I also shared a letter that we sent to the House Appropriations Committee. And so, again, happy to share those again, or as we kind of refine this message. Yeah, so happy to continue sharing information. And again, let me know. And what I'll probably be doing I'll probably be reaching out to you individually just to kind of see, do you have relationships that that I can help leverage, that people that you recommend that I reach out to, that kind of thing. And always looking for suggestions. Okay, I think that's it from me. So actually I would quickly, so before turning it over to Rob for the first part of the compliance report, Jakob, did Jeff give you any updates on the PNWRE, the status of that? So no, okay. Okay, so let me just mention, as folks might have seen in the news media, so as I talked about last month, the Pollution Control Hearings Board did affirm ORCAA's permit that we had issued to the wood pellet mill in Hoquiam. That has since been challenged to Thurston County Superior Court. And so that's currently continuing to working through the legal process. But again, ORCAA has issued the permit, and the facility is proceeding. I know our legal team is working with the Pacific Northwest Renewable Energy team to do what we can do to keep this project moving forward. Okay, with that, I'll hand it off to Rob Weiland, Inspection Supervisor, to give the first part, I think, of the Compliance Manager report.
Yeah, hello again. Thank you. Going over some highlights for the inspection team, and a little bleed over into the engineering team as well. We had a plain talk training on December 16th, right after the
plain language.
Plain language, excuse me, yes. Excuse me, plain language. Gotta get that, that's very important. Basically it was an all staff training. We basically shut down the office for a day and we went out to the lot and we had some lot folks, I think some Puget Sound folks as well. Like this is how we convey complex technical information to the uninitiated. So it was a really good training. And I think the staff learned a lot from it. I know my staff specifically, we had several meetings afterwards. It was very beneficial, and the consensus was it was sustained to maybe do again. Moving into highlights specifically for the inspection team, from the last board meeting, we did about 46 inspections. That information can be found in the compliance manager update. Bravo 5 is the attachment or the link on the agenda. I think it's also important to note that there was several investigation inspections, as well as partial compliance evaluation inspections. Then you have the full compliance evaluation inspections on there as well. If you scroll down to page 21, it kind of breaks up what that means in terms of an inspection for investigation versus a partial versus a full. You folks can read that down there below. And some team highlights, Aiden Palm, I guess one of our older inspectors now, he hit his 2-year mark this past week on the 3rd. And then Bryson Downs he didn't hit anything. He completed his first semester using the ORCAA's tuition reimbursement assistance program that we kind of started, I believe, with him. I think he was the first one. So he's knocking courses down. He's doing very, very well, straight A so far. So hopefully that is sustained. He's working towards his AA in biology. So the highlights are there in the manager update. I can talk on any questions there, but if there are none, I will pass it over to Jennifer.
Thanks, Rob. I don't hear any questions at this point. So I'll talk a little bit about the engineering side of the compliance team. 2 things I want to talk about. One is the emission inventory. If you recall from Lauren and Abby's presentation back in October, every year ORCAA compiles a point source emission inventory for all its AOP sources and larger registered sources. So typically about 80 sources a year. The process is a year-long process, which starts with preparing source-specific emission inventory forms every December and to be mailed out in January, and then ends with reporting emissions to EPA in December of the following year. So with that said, in December, we were very busy. We worked on finishing up the 2024 emission inventory and reported our emissions to EPA. And then we also prepared and mailed our 2025 emission inventory forms. 78 sources this year. Those went out on January 5th. And so the forms will be due February 11th this year for the registered sources and March 1st for the AOP sources. And we've already started receiving phone calls from sources as they receive their forms, needing assistance filling them out. So that process is well underway. I also just wanted to give you an update on our new database process. As you know, we're developing a new database, and the work group involves Chris, Debbie, and I. In December, we finished up initial training with a contractor on the database, and our next steps are finishing up setting up of the staging environment, which will give us a blank database so we can try it out, and then we'll be compiling our list of customizations and working with our contractor Unicon on getting those implemented. We're also beginning to work with Unicon on a plan to migrate our existing data from our current database to the new system so that we're not losing any of that data. So.
And the goal is, Jen, to, I think like late summer is when
Yes.
is the current kind of estimate for when we would have a new database up and running. And
Yes.
basically, because we certainly don't want to be using two databases at once. So the sequencing is going to be important, but by say August, September timeframe is when we think we'll be using the new database.
Yes, that is the current plan.
Great.
Any questions for Rob or Jennifer? I have one just kind of comment that is sort of out of left field, but we've got a little time, so I'm just going to make it. It really came to me when we were in the finance committee talking about Dan was and Rob were sharing the great training videos on how to submit the forms for demolition and asbestos. And Mike French and I sit on the Olympic Community Action Partnership, and we were at the annual staff meeting last week where they presented on a new AI tool that they're using for client intake, specifically for their LIHEAP program, which is the low income heating assistance program. And it's another one of those very complicated intake forms. And as we develop our new relational database, I just want to kind of alert, maybe I'm talking to Chris right now, but I think the application that they're using or the product they're using is called Foretell.ai, and it basically it fills out the form. Like if you imagine these complicated forms that we have that people have to fill out, and make that one door where you have to, you call in, I need a demolition permit, and then you can just have this AI portal process the information and fill out the form instead. And it's an improved, responsiveness from our organization, as well as the completion percentage of the form. And it just, I guess, something I want to flag as we move forward with a myriad of complicated forms. That is one avenue that we might want to keep our eyes open for opportunities with. So.
And to add to that, one of the interesting things they noted was the old system only, if you had to notify the person about some decision or whatever, they would notify them by phone or by email or by mail. They did a survey and they said, would you want a text notification? And 70% of respondents said yes. Obviously different populations, but just a thought. As we move into the next century, right? 6 years later, how many of our people would prefer a text notification? We probably don't know. I don't know if that's available to us. I don't know if that's something that's interesting. It's just one, to tag onto what Greg was saying. Being open-minded about these things is important.
Sorry, a tangent there. Any other? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, thanks for bringing those up. I mean, we have had some conversations. I know Dan has talked to our web provider, the Rhizome Collaborative, about potentially having some AI like chatbots or, kind of helping with the website. But then as we also think about our database, and so I think we've talked about, well, we need to be talking to Unicon about, how are they building in AI functionality to their system. Again, initially, the system will be internal focused, so staff will be using it. But it's a very important second component is going to be, it's available to the regulated community. So like the businesses that have permits with us will be submitting their permit applications electronically through our portal. And so, these are important things to be thinking about as these conversations move forward.
Great. Okay, on to Adele and the air monitoring report.
Sure. I'll let Dan get the slides up.
Now that Odell's embraced AI. Was this report done with AI as well, Odell?
I mean, embrace is a strong word.
Oh,
Dabbled.
I would say that Odell has been one of the biggest skeptics about AI around the office. We have had regular discussions, and in fact, we're having a lunchtime discussion tomorrow about AI issues and the public records aspects of it and other things. So yeah, it's there's a lot there,
But I want to keep an open mind, so,
yes.
and also I really wanted that graphic. So our air monitoring report for December. This is our current state of air monitors that we are now grouping by county, starting alphabetically with Clallam, and you can see Pahokos, as expected, is all dark green, which is very, very good. Forks is mostly good. We did have a little bit of an air stagnation event region-wide, actually, at the end of December. Except for in Pacific County. That's the one spot that we still continue to have good ventilation, and you can see that Pacific County maintains pretty good air quality most of the time. Lacey and Yelm, Thurston County also saw that, Port Townsend a little bit, and Shelton as well. So, but mostly good air quality for the winter, which is great. Next slide. And I also am throwing in the 2025 air monitoring summary. So this is all of the days, 365 days at all of the sites. So obviously Pahokos was down most of the year when we were trying to get that moved and find the new location. Forks and Port Angeles also kind of showing that slightly elevated numbers in the wintertime, but generally good throughout the year. Aberdeen looks great throughout most of the year. We're not even really seeing those winter peaks. That's true in Port Townsend as well. Although we did see a few last January in Shelton. Ilwaco, we did not start monitoring there until the middle of the summer, but that looks pretty good. Raymond, again, very similar, well ventilated, lots of dark greens and greens, very, very few yellows, so Raymond looks good. Lacey just had that one little event at the beginning of the year, but mostly good. And then Yelm, again, we didn't get that sensor up until the middle of the summer, and then we had some connection problems, but it seems to be all solved and working properly now. But this actually looks great for our region. Very few high winter months, and I'm happy with the year. So next slide. Other updates, we've been continuing to visit, we did a lot of quarterly updates. So Rob is also helps me out with the monitoring when he happens to be in these communities. So he was able to do the Aberdeen quarterly visit last month. Did end up having to go to Port Angeles and replace the data logger. And that data logger is the third one we've upgraded to the new system. So that is slowly coming online, and we're getting a whole new software system. And so we've been learning that. Yep. Other Lacey, we continue to visit monthly and do the quality checks there. Also, that is a great site. I was able to help train ecology staff on some of the monitors that we have there. It's very close to their headquarters, so we often serve as a testing platform and also training platform for their new staff. Rob also was able to visit Raymond and finally get our room temperature probe installed there. And I despite all of the things, and I know I keep saying this, I am close to finishing the Grace Harbor Saturation Study Report, but much like our strategic plan, it keeps getting bumped by things that are emergent, that need to be handled. So I continue to be very close to it, and I keep getting bumped from actually just finishing. So that is where I'm at with the monitoring, and happy to answer any questions.
Good stuff. And, Odell, as we have new members, maybe in the next couple months, you can kind of revisit your, I don't want to call it a lecture, but talking about, the importance of PM 2.5 and what we're really, what these reports mean, which is, it takes a little bit of education sometimes.
Sure, we can put something together for that.
And I will be reaching out to Paul, who had to step out, but he said he would be staying on the meeting online. But I'll certainly be reaching out to Paul to set up an onboarding meeting, and we'll give him some background on this and work to catch him up to speed. But again, anytime the board wants sort of more general updates, I mean, we'll certainly talk some about that. Well, as we talked about the health impacts next month.
Yep. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Pass it over to Dan for the communications update.
So you have my report in your board packet. Again, stress the desire for you to use that news you can use section at the top. Share it with your social media team and have them use that. There's some assets linked. I upload them to the back end of our website, so you can download those graphics and use them on your social media. Jeff mentioned next month we're going to be transitioning from Teams meetings to Zoom meetings to Zoom webinars. So you will see a change. It should be pretty seamless transition. In addition to the board calendar invites from Debbie, you will probably receive a invite directly from Zoom webinar saying you've been invited to be a board or a panel member on ongoing monthly webinars. And so you may get a pair of emails, one from ORCAA, one from Zoom, that you can add to your calendar. The links will change. We'll change that on our agendas. We'll change it on the websites. But from a practical standpoint for board members, it basically just means you're going to be a webinar panelist and have access to your camera and microphones and be able to interact as you always do. Attendees, members of the public, ORCAA staff that aren't part of the presentation team will be webinar attendees. They will be able to turn on their cameras and microphones, but we will be able to turn those off internally as well. So it's a security upgrade that we can block disruptive participants if they come on board and have greater security control. So it's not a huge financial change. We're going from like $300 a year to $1,000 a year for the service, but it's a much greater security system for us. So we'll share and we'll be doing some internal trials, making sure everything works seamlessly before the February board meeting. But that'll be the update for the board in February, is we're going to go to the webinar system. And I know Clallam, Mike has mentioned that his commission has gone to webinars instead of straight meetings, and I'm sure some of the others here have done as well. So just some added security. Rob mentioned our plain language training for all staff. That's some of the things you saw Tyson using, I think, in the policies and procedures talk. We're again looking to be open and accessible to the public, and a big part of that is making documents that are understandable and readable for the majority of people. And that means at this point writing to a 7th or 8th grade reading level for the American public, and keeping sentences short, using language that we would use in everyday speaking rather than long technical terms, and trying to break things down so it's easily understandable. So that's an ongoing process. We'll work with our entire staff, and I'd encourage any public agencies to do the same. We contracted with a trainer through the state DES, and they had really good reviews before we contracted them. We talked to people at Ecology and Puget Sound, and some of the other people that have worked with the trainer. And certainly, if you think you and your staff would benefit, feel free to reach out to us, and we can share our experiences with that trainer and that program. So. Wood stove program, I noted on our report, we didn't get started till late October. I've already approved over 50 projects in 6 counties. So it's for the winter months, that's remarkable how much people are jumping on this. So really pleased with how we're doing. I anticipate running out of funding early. Fortunately, there's a small pool of reserves that the state set aside for the wood smoke reduction grant. So if any local areas do expend the full grant amount, we can apply for a bonus amount later in the cycle. So we'll keep you posted on that. But I'm ahead of projections at this point in the grant. And then social media. Sorry.
Hey, Dan, could I just jump in very briefly? So the wood stove reduction grant is funded through MACA capital funds, and apparently there's plenty of money in that MACA account. Our core grant that we were talking about earlier is funded under MACA, the operating account, and that's where the red is. That's the fund that is projected to be under. So yeah, we do believe, and so we got a significant increase to our wood smoke reduction grant this year. And as Dan said, he's doing a really good job of pushing all that money out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a good clarification and it's important that all of us that do get those grants fully expend it over the biennium so that the money is reallocated by the legislature next biennium. And then just a note on our social media, we're seeing really good growth. On Nextdoor alone, we're got over 200,000 members or viewers that see each of our posts. On Facebook, we've had a 147% increase in followers. And on YouTube, thanks to Rob and his team working with me, our how-to videos have gotten substantial number of hits and are very popular training tools or help tools for our website. So and I'll call out Rose, our newest inspector, for doing a great job in helping get Spanish language versions of those as we produce those. So we hope to see more of that and have more multilingual documents going out as well. I think I'll leave it there.
Good stuff. Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan? All right. Well, appreciate the news you can use and all the good work. And we'll pass it over to Tyson. I just will just remind everyone that everyone has access on the board, has access to the finance committee meeting too. And we've got the financial update usually resides there. So if you want a little bit more information, you can always dig into that as well. And we'll pass it over to you, Tyson.
Yeah, gonna close it out here. So just a reminder to the board members who attended last month's meeting. You can claim mileage reimbursement for your trip to our office. Reach out to Jeff or I and figure out how to do that. So daily financial operations, things are business as usual. For year-end tax reporting, we finished up with W-2s, so all of our staff members have access to their W-2s for 2025. Still working on 1099s, which comes out of our accounting software. And I did confirm that 1095Bs are handled by our benefit trust AWC. So yay, I don't have to do those. We have started our fiscal year 2027 budget process. So our budget leads, they do have their budget worksheets and they're working through their draft expenditure budgets right now for 2027. For the building operation maintenance, we have selected a vendor to replace 2-ton and 4-ton heat pump. We're now coordinating with them on scheduling. So we want to minimize interruptions for both Orca staff and our tenants. So timing will be key.
And that's replacing units that were, I think, installed in the eighties.
Correct.
Yes.
Yep.
So long overdue for replacing those 2 heat pump units.
Yep. And unfortunately, we developed a roof leak. That requires immediate attention. We're in talks with some vendors currently, just looking at assessing what needs to be fixed. We're looking at a potential partial or full replacement of our roof. So that's going to be a big expense coming down the pipeline here. So I looked this up. Our current roof is 23 years old, so it's getting up there. So, you know, we have 30-year shingles, but you know, especially with these atmospheric rivers that are coming, we're getting a lot of use out of the roof lately. Just a quick update to the board. We do plan on bringing an amended budget for consideration to the February board finance committee and board meeting, and it will include that roof replacement and also the 2-ton and 4-ton heat replacement in that amended budget. And then lastly, for our wellness, we've submitted our Well City application for 2025. I did a quick calculation of how much we've saved for in 2025 as being a Well City participant. So for last calendar year, we saved $5,485 approximately. So it's important that we are a Well City each year. The wellness committee will be working on our calendar year budget coming up here, and then laying out kind of what we're going to be doing for next calendar year as far as events, challenges, and then completing those AWC tasks. So we're qualified as a Well City member. So that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Tyson. Any questions? Okay, well, we're a little ahead of schedule. I don't think we have any need for an executive session today, but I think, Jeff, we talked about it a little maybe, but I think we want to make sure we're talking about when we discuss the security breach, whether or not that qualifies for an executive session. I don't know if it does under potential litigation or if there's another reason, but we want to make sure we understand that before next meeting.
Yeah, so the Open Public Meetings Act does give us, so if there is anything that's sensitive to the agency, we will be discussing that during executive session, but I'll be working with the attorney that's been working with us through the cybersecurity issue to on recommendations of what we do during open session versus what's done during executive session. So, but I would imagine there will be at least some executive session at next month's meeting.
I just wanted to add one thing. So we did alert the SAO right after we knew of the security breach. We did just receive, just now during our board meeting, an email from the SAO office saying that they would not be performing a formal investigation. And that's based on the processes that we put in place as far as employing an IT forensic team, and then also the magnitude of the breach, which was good. I mean, it's not good, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And we'll be talking about that next board meeting. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'll give the TLDR is that really kudos to staff for quickly identifying, responding, and for going to the extra level to create a situation where the SAO's office was comfortable with our own internal response and improvement of our practices. So every organization needs to be vigilant because these attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, and we all need to be paying attention. So with that, anything from board members for the good of the order before we give people a few minutes back in their day? So let it go down in the record that I shaved 15 minutes off. I'm going to take all the credit, okay? With that, We are adjourned. We'll see you guys next month, February 11th. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank,